The morning sun rose over the fields as disciples gathered under the Bodhi tree. The air was calm, filled with serenity. Buddha walked among his disciples, his presence radiating peace and wisdom. He stopped by a young disciple who seemed troubled and silent. "What weighs heavy on your heart today?" Buddha asked, his voice like a gentle stream. The disciple looked up, tears glistening in his eyes, a story buried in his silence. Buddha held a lotus plucked from the pond's surface, its petals radiant despite muddy waters beneath. "Do you see how this lotus blooms amidst the mud?" Buddha asked, his voice calm and clear. "I understand your pain, for I too have walked through loss and sorrow," Buddha said gently. The disciples leaned in closer, eager to hear the wisdom that flowed like a river. Buddha smiled and continued, "The lotus thrives not by rejecting mud, but by embracing its nurturing embrace." His gaze turned to the pond, still and reflective. The sight of an old man, bent with age, pierced my heart, he said, his voice steady. "Then I saw a man afflicted with disease, his body weary and frail from illness," Buddha continued. Another disciple questioned, "Master, are you saying resistance is futile? Should we surrender to struggles instead of fighting back?" Buddha lowered the lotus back into the water, watching it drift gently. "Peace arises when we cease fighting reality," he answered. "Seeing these forms of suffering left a wound on my spirit, deep and relentless," Buddha said. "That wound became the catalyst for my journey, for my search to understand the nature of suffering," he explained. "Struggles stem from resistance to what is. Acceptance clears the path to serenity," Buddha said, his voice unwavering. "Suffering, instead, is a teacher, showing us the impermanent and fleeting nature of life," Buddha explained. "When we hold on to what must pass, we create our own pain and sorrow," he added softly. "The wound of loss, of change, can lead us to great truths if we allow it," Buddha said. "Rather than flee from it, sit with your wound, and it will teach you," Buddha instructed. The disciples pondered these words, their minds grasping at their deeper meanings. The forest silence enveloped them as realization slowly dawned. The fear, the doubt, the sadness, they were my companions in that silent night, Buddha added. "I welcomed them as messengers, rather than pushing them away in fear or anger," Buddha said. "What they taught me was this: suffering arises from craving and clinging," he explained. "Craving for what we desire, clinging to what we fear to lose," Buddha elaborated. "But once you see suffering as it is, its power over you begins to diminish," Buddha said. "Understanding suffering is the first step toward liberation," Buddha emphasized. The young man, now calmer, observed the lotus with newfound understanding. Struggles faded as clarity emerged in his heart. "It connects you with the entire living world, where suffering is shared," he added. "Allow your wound to open you to compassion for yourself and others," Buddha advised. "From compassion grows strength, and from strength grows wisdom," Buddha continued. "And with wisdom, you will learn to find peace even within sorrow," Buddha concluded. The young disciple wiped his tears, his heart a little lighter, his mind a little clearer. Buddha smiled, his presence a quiet assurance that transformation was possible. The lesson lingered in the air, like the scent of jasmine after the rain. Silence returned to the grove as disciples sat in contemplation, their hearts touched by the teaching. Let your mind flow naturally, unhindered by clinging or resistance, and clarity will arise, a disciple said thoughtfully. Master, I think I understand. Another day, the disciples gathered under the Bodhi tree as the sun hung low in the afternoon sky. The atmosphere was quiet, filled with the gentle rustle of leaves and the occasional birdsong. Buddha sat cross-legged, radiating peace. As the disciples formed a circle around him, a man approached the gathering, his eyes filled with anguish and his body trembling with despair. I am tormented by guilt for wrongs I have done to others, he confessed. His voice shaking, Buddha raised his hand gently, motioning for the man to join the circle and share his burden. Guilt is a fire that consumes the heart, but it can also light the path to compassion, Buddha said. The man sat, tears streaming down his face, as Buddha's words slowly began to soothe his soul. Let me tell you of a time when I encountered a man who had harmed others deeply, Buddha began. The disciples leaned forward, their focus unwavering, as they anticipated the story that Buddha would share. This man, blinded by anger, had taken much from the lives of others, causing great suffering, Buddha continued. He came to me, trembling like you, weighed down by the immense burden of his actions, Buddha said. Instead of shunning him, I saw the pain behind his deeds and the torment within him, Buddha added. The first step to easing the weight of guilt is to face it with honesty and courage, Buddha explained. Acknowledge what you have done, and do not run from the truth, even when it stings, Buddha advised. Guilt, when acknowledged, can become the seed of compassion and the beginning of healing, Buddha said. The man listened intently, his breathing growing steadier as the teaching penetrated his heavy heart. When the man shared his story with me, I encouraged him to turn his guilt into an offering of kindness, Buddha recalled. For every wound he had caused, I asked him to tend to a wound in another. To balance the scales, Buddha said. He began to help those in need, feeding the hungry and healing the sick, Buddha recounted. In this way, his acts of compassion began to cleanse his soul of the poison of guilt, Buddha explained. Guilt does not define you. It is an invitation to transform yourself through acts of love and service, Buddha said. Through compassion, he found a way to soothe the wounds he had inflicted and those within himself, Buddha continued. The man lowered his head, his tears now mixed with a spark of hope ignited by Buddha's words. When I was a prince in the palace, I too was burdened by the guilt of ignorance, Buddha shared. I lived in luxury while suffering surrounded me, unseen and unheard beyond the palace walls, Buddha explained. When I finally left, I carried that guilt with me, letting it guide my steps, Buddha said. It was guilt that opened my eyes to the pain of others and awakened my compassion, Buddha added. Without guilt, I may have never left the palace. I may have never walked the path of enlightenment, Buddha reflected. Do not let guilt paralyze you. Let it propel you toward healing and understanding, Buddha instructed. Remember, stillness is not resistance but acceptance of what flows around you, he said. He walked away, his robes rustling gently in the breeze, leaving the disciples to reflect in the valley's embrace. To heal the world, you must start by healing yourself. And guilt is often the doorway, Buddha explained. Remember, every act of compassion you give to the world returns to you as peace within, Buddha concluded. The man wiped his tears, his trembling replaced by a steady resolve to walk a path of compassion. Buddha smiled, his face a reflection of the light and peace that his teachings brought to others. The disciples sat in silence, their hearts echoing with the profound truths that Buddha had shared. The Bodhi tree swayed gently in the breeze, as if bowing to the wisdom spoken beneath its sheltering branches. Another day, the sun set behind the hills as shadows lengthened under the Bodhi tree. The disciples assembled quietly, their minds open to the wisdom Buddha would share. Among them was a woman with a sorrowful expression, her hands trembling as she clutched a withered flower. I am unable to accept the loss of my child, she whispered, her voice heavy with grief. Buddha turned his gaze to her, his eyes filled with understanding and profound compassion. Come forward and let us share this burden together, Buddha said gently. Gesturing toward her, she stepped forward, her tears flowing freely, as Buddha waited patiently for her to speak. Why must life be so cruel, so fleeting, so impermanent? She asked, her voice shaking. Buddha placed his hand over the flower and said, "Let me tell you about impermanence through this rose." The disciples leaned closer, eager to hear the wisdom that Buddha would reveal in his gentle, poetic words. This rose once bloomed with vibrant color and fragrance, enchanting all who gazed upon it. Buddha said softly, "Time, however, is indifferent to beauty, and now the rose fades, its petals withering into dust." Buddha continued, "Does this impermanence make its beauty any less meaningful or profound?" Buddha asked. The woman stared at the rose, her trembling subsiding as she pondered Buddha's question. Impermanence does not diminish beauty. It enhances it, for every moment becomes precious and irreplaceable, Buddha explained. Clinging to permanence is where suffering arises. For life is as transient as the breeze that moves the leaves, Buddha said. When my mother passed, I too felt the agony of loss and the yearning for permanence, Buddha shared. Through meditation, I learned that accepting impermanence is the only path to true peace, Buddha explained. Impermanence is not a curse. It is the nature of existence, the dance of life itself, Buddha continued. When we let go of our attachment, we free ourselves from the chains of sorrow, Buddha said. This rose teaches us to cherish every moment, knowing it will inevitably change, Buddha added. The woman nodded, the weight of her sorrow beginning to lift, her heart finding solace in Buddha's words. Let me tell you about a village struck by famine and the impermanence of their suffering, Buddha began. The villagers came to me, their faces gaunt with hunger and despair, their hope diminishing, Buddha continued. I guided them toward the river, teaching them to cultivate the land and sow seeds for the coming season, Buddha said. Through effort and resilience, they overcame their suffering, their lives transformed by understanding impermanence, Buddha shared. Suffering, too, is impermanent. It does not last forever. And understanding this offers strength, Buddha explained. The disciples exchanged glances, their hearts touched by the profound truths embedded in Buddha's teaching. When we embrace impermanence, we understand life as it is, not as we wish it to be, Buddha said. This understanding liberates us from the fear of loss and the agony of holding on, Buddha explained. Impermanence is not to be feared. It is to be accepted and celebrated as the essence of existence, Buddha said. The woman looked at the rose, her hands steady, her gaze filled with renewed hope and understanding. Even the stars above us will one day fade, yet their light continues to inspire us, Buddha added. This body of mine, too, will wither, yet my teachings will remain. Transcending time, Buddha said. Let go of the longing for permanence, and you will find freedom in the flow of life, Buddha encouraged. Life is fleeting, but within that fleetingness lies profound beauty and wisdom, Buddha concluded. Silence fell over the gathering, the disciples reflecting deeply on the truths Buddha had shared. The woman stepped back, her sorrow transformed into gratitude and a sense of peace. Buddha smiled, his presence a beacon of light to all who sought his wisdom. The stars appeared in the night sky, a reminder of the impermanence that governed all existence. The Bodhi tree swayed gently in the breeze, as if echoing the wisdom spoken beneath its ancient branches. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.